everyone. I am Emily Landers, and this is How'd She Do That? A podcast answering that question each episode. Welcome, everyone. I am so happy that you are tuning in for today's episode with Annette Azan, the founder of 92c. You guys are going to love getting to know Annette and her amazing brand. Again, a special welcome to our new listeners. So happy that you're here and that you're tuning in today. Well, you guys, I am actually tuning in from a different place. For those of you who are familiar with the podcast and myself, you know that I live in Los Angeles. I'm actually tuning in from Vegas. My husband and I are here for work, and we are enjoying ourselves. It's really hot here. It's really hot. But it had me thinking, I'd love to know, where are you tuning in from? Where do you guys live? I have all the stats in front of me, but I would love to know. Be sure to tag us when you listen to today's episode. Let me know, where are you listening from? I am so curious now to know where all of you are. I know that we have listeners in all 50 states and across the globe at this point, so it'd be really fun. I'm tuning in from Vegas. Where are you guys? Where are you ladies? Well, I know many of you were able to listen to last week's episode with Pamela Munson. If you have not done so yet, I highly encourage you to do so. You can also check out the week before that with Lucy Murkison of Love Lucy and all of our incredible guests, which you can find anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Last Friday, I did something a little different, but really fun. We did a bonus episode where I basically shared a brainstorming session about growth and success of the podcast and what that looks like to me. Just a bunch of different thoughts that I've been having recently, and I was really surprised at how many of you reached out and said that you enjoyed it. So join the conversation, head over to that episode. Be sure to let us know what you think. Well, in the meantime, I know you're going to love today's episode. Here is our very special guest, Annette Azan, on How'd She Do That? Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of How'd She Do That? Today's guest, Annette Azan, is the founder of 92c, the ultimate undergarment for every woman. Annette is a 25-year veteran of the fashion industry and graduate of the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City. Annette's roles throughout her career have ranged from owning a boutique, creating her own interior design firm, and most recently, developing and testing the Nudie garment and officially launching the product and brand in 2019. Nudie's unique double strap system can be worn 12 plus ways and is sold online as well as in stores in California, New York, Colorado, and even Costa Rica. Annette believes in empowering women to be confident in the skin they're in and has created an impressive and empowering community of women through her many different ventures. When Annette isn't overseeing production of her cult favorite bra, speaking with women like myself, or brainstorming all that's to come with her team, she is likely enjoying time with her two stunning daughters. Annette, welcome to How'd She Do That?
How did I do that? You made me sound amazing. Thank you, Emily. I'm like, wow.
Well, I am thrilled. And it's so funny because before we started recording, I was telling you, I did a little research on you and I was already excited about this conversation. But now to know a little bit more, I'm so excited to introduce you to my listeners. So again, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thrilled to be here.
Well, this is going to be a fun conversation. And I mentioned a little bit in your intro, a little bit about your background, but I'd love to actually go back and hear a little bit more about you. Perhaps you can share a little bit about your upbringing and then maybe your journey to the Fashion Institute of Technology.
Yeah. So interesting. So I was actually born of parents that were not from this country.
Wow.
I'm actually Lebanese, Jamaican, and Cuban, but born in New York. And actually got a chance to move back to Jamaica when I was a teenager. And my father manufactured women's panties. So it's really funny how sometimes you come full circle back to the lingerie industry. And but I had such like a varied background, and my parents always had their own business. And so security for me was within my own self, like what what I could actually create
Mm.
on my own. It wasn't for big corporations, etc. So that's something that really, I think, made the path for me.
Mm.
But my love growing up was dance.
Oh.
I was dancing from the age of 4, starting with ballet, and I actually went to the High School um, of Arts for
Oh.
dance in Florida, one of 5 in the country. And I thought I was going to be a dancer. And at
Oh.
the same time, I actually realized that I didn't I didn't think I was good enough to be a dancer, and
Mm.
so I kind of sidestepped over into fashion
Mm.
because I also love fashion and I love kind of the movement and feeling of fashion. So I thought when I went to the Fashion Institute of Technology for college that what I really wanted to do was I wanted to go into fashion shows and
Oh.
be able to organize produce fashion shows.
Oh my goodness. Well, right off the bat, there's so many connects to what you've done with Nudie. And I love too to hear just that little sidestep of your parents' business and your dad in Jamaica
Yeah,
to think,
yeah.
now I know it's a little bit of a family affair. Well, tell us a little bit about your decision process in moving forward and deciding to go to Fashion Institute, because I have many listeners who are recent grads. We even have high school students who are wondering what's their next step. What was it that you loved so much about that? Was it, I mean, your love of fashion was key, but what was it that really spoke to you to decide, okay, this is where I'm going? And then what was it that you actually majored in?
So well, first of all, I loved New York. So, again, having gone to the theater arts high school, and one was here in New York, it was kind of a dream. So, flash dance, was there, and it was all about dance, and it was all basically in New York. So that was huge for me. I
Mm.
also had some friends that moved here, but the Fashion Institute, has always been something to really look forward to. I mean,
Mm.
that a very big name, alongside Parsons, but almost Fashion Institute seems a little more gritty, kind of like you're really in it when you're there,
Mm.
which is what I found when I got there.
Oh.
So loved being in New York, and it was a sidestep because I had taken some classes a year or two down in Florida, and so I was just slightly older when I came to New York. But I also got to accelerate quite quickly with
Mm.
the people I met and the jobs that I had into the pretty much a dream jobs in the 80s here in fashion. And I won't go ahead of myself. I'll let I'll
Oh.
let I'll let the story unfold.
Oh, but it's so cool to even think about you stepping into these things. Now, when you were able to, you were able to move through school and upon graduation, what did that first role out of school look like? And perhaps what was the connect there? How did you find that role?
It's funny, I was speaking to my connect this morning via text,
Oh,
like
how
many
fun.
years later, but I had one of my good friends from high school was dating somebody who was the general manager of a store called Diane B. And Diane Benson, who I'm still in touch with today, is actually one of the queens of fashion. I mean, she was the first person to ever bring Issey Miyake, Dolce Gabbana,
Wow.
all these, Jean Paul Gaultier, all these amazing labels
Mm.
to the States. She was the first. So he needed an assistant as a general manager. And so straight out of school, I went and became his assistant. And we had 3 stores in New York, and at the time owned also Comme des Garçons. So, think about the 80s in New York. I was in the thick of it in like art and music. We had our offices were down in Soho.
Oh.
It was really a dream job, and a dream job at a very special time in the city for fashion.
Oh, yeah, thinking about you running around New York, I always love when my guests come on and I think of them back in whatever it was, whatever entity they were doing right out of school. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like the heyday of the
Yes.
city life. And like you said, art, music, dance, and for all of those passions to be basically at your fingertips. I'm sure that was so much fun. Now,
Amazing. Yeah.
what did a day in the life look like in this specific role?
Yeah, it was really intense learning. Luckily, I got to take a lot of the skills that I learned, but a lot of them also are things that you don't learn in school. So we were importing, right? So I had to learn a lot about importing and factoring. I was the person in charge of overseeing. We were building out an amazing new store on Wooster Street,
Wow.
and I had to oversee the construction of that. And just by the way, I ended up marrying the contractor on
Oh
that
my
job. That's where my
gosh.
two beautiful children came from.
I
Thank you, Diane. Anyway, so funny. But yeah, so I had to oversee that. And 2 years after I actually started in that position, the man that I went to work with, who had actually left Gucci to come to Diane B, which
Wow.
is kind of funny, big name to smaller name. But he got really ill, and I ended up stepping into his position at the age of
Wow.
24 because I knew what was going on. I worked super closely with him, and so that was a very big responsibility at that age. And I rose.
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, and to think about it's amazing even these little pieces because for those of you who are listening, you may be familiar with Annette via Nudie and all that she's done more recently, but to think about kind of, I mean, even the element of, the divine or whatever it might be that you were
Mm.
in that position and for him to leave and what, I mean, you're managing 3 stores at this point. How old are you?
I was 24 years old.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
When I think about it now, you do these things and then you look back and you go, how did I do that? And right, exactly. But I still think now, like, how did I do that? But I mean, luckily, I was taking my notes and really watching, how to, deal with bankers, and there were so many things, so
Well,
many things.
and so many things I'm sure that later on, and of course we'll continue on and get to this, but that you would look back and be like, wow, that was setting me up because every little puzzle piece that we're kind of adding together in your story, I can kind of see how it's shaping out to become what you've now created. I mean, and to think about at this point, I'm so curious because you find yourself, you're overseeing these different stores and you're in a position that, yeah, at a very young age, you've taken on quite a bit. What in that time, take us back to that mentality. What were you expecting your career to be like? Did you think that was going to be a forever role? Did you just absolutely love it? Or was there an entrepreneurial bug even then that you would kind of dwell on at times?
Just to repeat, having grown up in a family where, my parents always had their own business, it wasn't something that felt unusual to me. And also, Diane trusted me, which
Yeah.
was huge for me. I consider Diane a mentor. I learned so much from her in that role. She was a true visionary, and she had such a beautiful way with people,
Mm.
the way that she spoke to them. And she wasn't afraid to take chances, obviously, because she brought in these designers that were new to the US. And I learned a lot about art, and I actually became a huge art lover through Diane.
Wow.
And just learned what it was like to be a visionary.
Mm.
And that thread has always been with me throughout my entire career. I was not thinking, though, what's the next? I
Mm.
was really just thinking in the moment,
Mm.
like, how am I going to get through tomorrow? And I
Right.
did.
Well, it's so true. And so many, I mean, and so many of my listeners, you might even be laughing at me thinking, well, what were you thinking then? Were you thinking of what's coming ahead? It's like, no, when you look back at those memories, it's like, no, I was thinking about tomorrow. I was thinking about getting over this crisis. I was thinking about
Right.
opening this store, et cetera, et cetera. Well, tell us a little bit, how long were you there and what did it look like to kind of transition to your next role?
So, at the time that I actually stepped in the role, it was going towards kind of middle to the third quarter of the 80s,
Mm.
right before there was like a big crisis there. And there was so much kind of mismanagement of a lot of the projects that were happening there, like, overspent on this. And then there was my husband at the time took over as a contractor from another contractor, which we found out had actually been stealing money.
Oh
So
my gosh. Wow.
thousands and thousands of dollars had been lost, and
Oh,
we were unable to recoup. So, like around in 1987, we ended up closing the business. It was so sad. I mean, till this day, when I
oh,
say it, it was just because Diane meant so much to so many people in terms of fashion and art. We had so many stars and celebrities and things that shopped there. Anyway, so I ended up closing that, with Diane,
wow.
being by her side, and then thinking, oh, what am I going to do for a while? And then Norma Crawley came to light, and that was kind of an interesting time because that was when Norma was just closing. She had a store in Soho and one on 56th Street, and she was just closing the store in Soho, which actually was furnishings. I don't know if you're younger, probably people don't remember that Norma Kamali actually had furniture.
Oh,
I don't know if you know, but it was really, really interesting. Anyway, so she closed that store, and I went to work for her at the time, and it was her heyday.
oh.
It was when we had this amazing fashion show in Central Park. I will never forget this fashion show. I have the funniest story about it. So she decided we were not that far from the park, to have it around the pond. So basically, we had to have 75 models because there was no changing. So we had 75 supermodels all changing. We had to start makeup and hair 4 hours before, and then they had to stand there in their full outfit for 4 hours before they all trudged over to the. I mean, it was, when you think about these stories, you cannot make it up. I mean,
No.
this is truly, and I'll never forget just having to manage, just models sweating and complaining and whatever. Never, after that, it was really hard to find a model to model for Norma Kamali. Anyways, we were a small group, but kind of powerful. It was fun to work for her in those days. And
Hmm.
after the fashion show, we had sewers that were doing all the samples in that fabulous building that still exists on 56th Street. So I remember one of the sewers came up to me with a very heavy Polish accent, and she said to me, I see someone looks just like you. And she pulls out this Polish newspaper, and there's my picture, and it says, Norma Kamali, famous fashion designer. They thought I was Norma. I still have that newspaper to this day. And yeah, so those were just fun days.
Oh my gosh. Well, I hope you have that
Yeah.
framed because that's hilarious.
Yeah, well, Norma had she had this party where she kind of got everybody who used to work for her that she could throughout the ages, and I brought that newspaper with me, and she was just laughing. But yeah. So for a minute, I was a famous fashion designer.
You know what though? It was showing what was ahead in your life and in your future.
Yes, who knew?
Who knew? I mean, Annette, this is so fun. And it's so cool too for all of my listeners who are fashion junkies. And of course, some of these names you guys actually know. And for Annette, for you to have worked with them, I mean, it's
Yeah.
incredible to think about. Even you talking about the sewers and talking about the different products that you were in touch with and that you saw in the fashion show. I mean, every little piece really, I'm so excited and I'm eager to get to what you're up to now, but I can see how these little steps along the way throughout your story, I mean, it's gonna be really fun for you guys to hear all that Annette is doing at this season of life. But tell us, because I know there's actually a season that you stepped away from fashion, not necessarily away from creativity and from beauty and design, but there was a season, was there not, that you actually went into interiors?
Yeah, that came a little bit later.
Mhm.
That was after I worked for Donna Karan. So
Ah,
actually, after I got married and had kids,
mhm.
and 9/11 happened, I was working for one of the largest fashion trade show organizers in the world called Egato, and they
Wow.
were based in Dusseldorf, and they had trade shows obviously in Dusseldorf, in Hong Kong, and London. And I actually opened up I was a VP of marketing. I opened up an office here in the US to get American designers to show at our shows around the world and to get them to export. And
Wow.
that was kind of mid 90s. And at that point, very few American designers were exporting, which is amazing when you think about it. It wasn't that long ago. That was a very tall order. I had to learn what it was like to export. I mean, had been importing when I was working for Diane Benson, and now I had to
Right.
teach people how to export. And at the time, my biggest firm that actually I took over was Liz Claiborne.
Wow.
Funny enough, but so I was traveling a lot, and I had a young kid, and then 9/11 happened,
Hmm.
and I thought, oh, you know what? I don't want to be away from my kids.
Yeah.
So I decided to leave that job and open my own boutique for a while and just kind of stay put. And I got to kind of step into, Diane Benson's shoes where, I got to create these incredible environments. And it wasn't in New York City, so it wasn't like that fabulous. It wasn't Soho. It was in Nyack. But I did bring a little bit of New York City there, and people
Oh,
today are still talking about my boutique, which was called Inn.
oh,
And so I kind of stayed there for a while until I went and I worked for Donna Karan when I actually got a divorce and happened to meet Donna. It was very organic. And she asked me to come and take over retail, which I did
oh my
for her.
gosh. Well,
Not for Donna Karan. So let me just tell you a little bit. It's for Urban
yeah.
Zen, her private company.
Oh my goodness. Well,
Yeah.
even there, it's so fun to think about. And I love too, because one of the themes that I'm just hearing within your career, and I'm sure it'll continue to be one of the themes, is this element of networking. And that it sounds
Mm.
as though you really and maybe too, I don't know, what would you credit that to? The kind of theme that I'm hearing of networking, and even for you to have mentioned earlier, texting a connect earlier today from just life, just friendship. What would you say, is the encouragement you could maybe give listeners within the theme of networking? Like, how would you say is that something that comes natural to you? Is that something that you've worked at? But so many of your roles throughout your career have been through your network and through your relationships. So where do you think that comes from?
It's interesting because I never use the word networking. Even saying it makes me feel very structured and heavy.
Yeah.
It was more organic for me. I love people.
Hmm.
I mean, seriously. So I get to chat with a lot of people, and I've always been that person that have drawn people together.
Hmm.
And so that's just been, I've done it in a much more natural way. I don't think I'm great at that kind of structured networking every time I think networking, I think LinkedIn.
Right. And name
Networking LinkedIn.
tags. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. But just really more organic, just talking to people. And when you're passionate about something, it's so easy to tell your story, and
Hmm.
then so thoughtfully and heartfelt to say, "Hey, do you know anyone that would be interested in da da
Mm.
da?"
Wow.
And I think that that's just how it's rolled for me.
Well, and it's such a good
Yeah.
point for those of you who are listening to think about, yeah, what is it that you're passionate about? Because right off the bat, I mean, we're only a certain amount of time into this conversation. I could say, okay, Annette, art, people,
Mm.
life, vibrancy, fun, fashion. I mean, just right off the bat, because you're sharing your passions with me, and it kind of rubs off on me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to hear this next step and what it was that you were doing and what you got into. It's just such a great tip, Annette, for anyone to think, don't think of it as networking so much as relationships and
Yes.
sharing your passions and connecting with others like you did with Donna, to connect on those passions and whatnot. So tell us, you're now kind of moving forward with this private side of things and working with Donna in that realm. What did it look like? What was the next step? I mean, I'm so eager to kind of hear more about the entrepreneurial side, because you had the boutique, and that's still something that's very much around the corner. But what did
Mhm.
it look like, and what role was it that you had after that?
Yeah, so working with Donna was amazing because she was this huge name, but we were
Mm.
a startup. So I, again, got to learn, I got to take my small boutique skills into this large firm, which I believe really helped them because we only had two stores
Wow.
at the time, and it was being run as if we had 60. We would have burnt out in no time.
Wow.
So I actually left Donna to get married a second
Oh,
time.
oh,
And because my second husband didn't live here and I needed to travel,
oh,
that's when I actually started to do interiors, which came naturally because when I was at Urban Zen, we had rolled out a whole line of home furnishings and objets for the home. And I was really involved with that and getting involved with people's homes, etc. So, and it goes back to my love of environments and art, and those things were just natural. So I literally just hung up a sign in my mind and said, okay, I'm just going to start doing interiors because I can do this while I'm on the road. I can do it when I'm traveling with my new husband, blah, blah, blah. So, but what happened and how it came to Nudie, so now you probably know I've always been in the business side of fashion. I've been the numbers person, but
right.
more overseeing kind of retail or marketing, as I did with the trade show company. So for my second wedding, I had this amazing wedding dress that was so sheer and it was almost like Fortuny silks, like so diaphanous and very
Oh,
skin bearing. And I could not find anything I could wear under my dress. So this is, that old, like, well, so I made something. So I did. 2 weeks before my wedding, I bought this other wedding dress that was absolutely hideous, just in case this didn't work. And I mean, that it was so not me. And so a couple weeks before, I said, I wonder if I can make something. And I basically went to the store, found some fabric, and I didn't say to myself, I'm going to make a bra. I just said, I just need something to give me a very thin layer between myself and my guests at the wedding,
yes.
as I was dancing. So my daughters and I actually hand sewed the first nudie.
Oh my
I remember, so vividly. And the minute that I put it on my body, it didn't feel like a bra.
Yeah.
Didn't look like a bra. And I kind of sensated something was there, but you couldn't really feel that something was there. And this was a moment I looked around the room and I said, I cannot believe that nobody has thought about this.
Wow.
And this is me who I know the European market, I know the US market. I'm looking around the room thinking,
Right.
oh my God. So after the wedding, I said, immediately it was just like, this is something. And I was a retailer, so I was really thinking, oh my God, if I had something like this at Urban Zen or at Norma Kamali, it would have helped us sell so much more merchandise because
Wow.
the first layer issue is a big issue in women buying clothes.
Right.
So I just saw an opportunity big time. And so after the wedding, literally, I didn't even go on a honeymoon. I went back to the drawing board and I thought, okay, what else? What other fashion are having issues with the first layer? So I started to sew 3 different prototypes,
Oh,
you know, with my very untrained hand.
oh my
I'll have to say
gosh.
that. So they look a little bit like Frankenstein, but they work. But they worked. And I also I had come up with the name from the beginning, but it was so funny. And that was 11 years ago. This was all happening. So, at that point, Victoria's Secret was still rocking and rolling with their
Right.
push-ups and their wires, and everything was about, shaping the breast. But I knew I've always been kind of a natural person, and I never wore push-ups or anything. And I knew that this was really going to offer something to women that they did not have.
Wow.
And so I was writing my nudie name, and somebody owned it in Australia. And so every so often I would look online to see if I could actually buy the .com. 1 year later, I was able to buy the name Nudie, which was, I remember just toasting. I just said, oh my God, I've got the name. But
Yes.
I couldn't, my seamstress, I was living in the Hamptons at the time, my seamstress could never get the construction right on the machine. So she was doing all these prototypes with me. And I thought, I really need to find somebody who has has really more development, production of bras or sports bras or something that could help me. And so from that time, 11 years ago, it took me 5 years to find that person to help me.
Oh
There's a
my.
lesson there. Don't give up on your dream.
Yeah.
And it's all timing, because when I met the person that helped me, Victoria's Secret was still kind of out there, but things were slowly shifting. Like women were kind of not, or more and more of them were kind of opting out for being shaped. So I thought, okay, this is the time. So that's how Nudie began. And then it took 3 years of development because Nudie has never been done before. So we actually had to come up with ways of making and producing this in a factory.
Wow.
And that was a journey. I mean, we went to factories all over the US. We started to do development in Colombia and thought that was going to, work out. And then they didn't want to sign an NDA, so we had to pull back.
Oh my God.
I mean, it was really trial and error. We would go to a factory and they would say, yes, we can do this. And then we'd come back and then they wouldn't answer our, emails anymore. So, I mean, it was really a very, very tough thing to find somebody that could opt into our dream and then do the work that was needed to get this product to work. But we did find a factory here, which we're actually still developing with, and I love them to death. I mean, we know all our sewers. I mean, they've been like troopers. Even when they started, they were not sure that this could work. Took them a year and they're like, oh, okay, yes, I see the light. And so what we did was it had been such a long time that we worked on development, and we had over 500 women trialing our product.
Oh my gosh.
That's how many women it takes, because, we're all unique. And sometimes when we look at our bodies, each breast is unique.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
like in our own bodies. So,
yes.
But we decided, we were so eager to get it out to the masses. We decided to launch on Kickstarter.
Yes.
Yeah, which is what we did in 2019. And that took us 3 years, not 3 years, 3 months, just to prepare for Kickstarter. It was, every word and description and every font, I mean, everything we put a lot of thought to.
Yeah.
Of course, the video was key, and we were lucky enough to find this amazing producer who really who did it at a fraction of the cost, because they were friends with the person that I worked with. And so we had a great video. We had a really strong campaign. And when we pushed that button, I cannot tell you the fantastic feeling after. At that point, it was 9 years of my dream.
Wow.
And to see $50,000 come in 2 hours.
Oh my gosh.
No, it was beyond exciting. It was like, oh, I was right 11 years ago. People do want this.
Well, I mean, I'm just sitting over here. I'm like doing the math in my head. I'm thinking about all the hours that you put into this. I'm thinking about the prototype. I'm thinking about your wedding. I mean, It is so cool, Annette, to hear. And you guys, I've been able to try Nudie, and it is amazing. Your pieces are amazing. The feel is amazing. The look is amazing. And it really is incredible to me that you are trying something on at your wedding. You're like, okay, what's going to work here? And for the history of your career to have been in fashion, and for you to be able to know the first thing that's going to help sell someone else's clothes is this.
Yes.
I mean, there's just so many pieces of your story that I think are so cool that I would have never put together because it's not my area of expertise. And I love to thank you for sharing that behind the scenes scoop of this wasn't a year in the making. This wasn't even 4 years in the making. This was years in the making to have it be what you would have always hoped. And I love what you just said a second ago. 11 years ago, I was right. People did want this, and this was a great idea. Well, I'm curious, could you tell us a little bit more? Because I'm familiar with Kickstarter, but there might be some listeners who aren't familiar with that platform and what it does. Could you share a little bit more about what that looked like to be able to launch? Gosh, just you guys, this is a short time frame we're talking about too, just back in 2019.
Yeah. So Kickstarter is a platform for really any product. And a lot of times, I mean, we were a little bit further along, but it's a launch site for products. And basically you are selling, but you're not really selling, you're basically giving the product as perks. So people do give you money for basically a perk or a pledge that they pledge from you.
Wow.
And sometimes for some companies, they're a year or a year and a half out in some cases where you don't even get your product, but they're buying into your dream. And I have to say, I love Kickstarter because these backers really are buying into your dream, and they do feel a part. I can say that unequivocally because now a lot of them, we ended up at 13,000 are our customers today. And sometimes I like to look in our shop and I see, oh my God, they've come back 8 times and they've bought.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it really is incredible. But they also know they were there to support us at the very beginning. So it was an amazing experience. It's like fast forward retailing.
Yes.
And that's what I love it. And you're answering basically every person that comes out to you. So for 30 days, we're answering day and night because it's around the world. We ship to over 40 different countries. This one woman, I will never forget this. Luckily it was during the day. She was online literally saying, oh my God, I have not been able to wear a bra. I have a stroke. I can't use one side of my body. And I'm wondering if I could get nudie on, with just one hand. And I'm typing to her and I said, hold on a minute. I'm going to try it. And in my living room, I put nudie on with one hand. And I was so excited to type back, yes, you can.
Wow.
Yes, you can. And those are the types of experiences. It's just like, you can't, they're priceless. They are priceless.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I literally have chills over here thinking about, and for that individual to be able to communicate with you, the founder.
Yes.
I mean, how cool, Annette, that you not only did you create something that, people in fashion would love, or myself, a girl in Los Angeles would love, but then to have someone like that say, can this help me? I mean, that's crazy. Yeah. It's really amazing to think about what nudie can do, but what an insane example. That is, wow. Out of all, I've interviewed quite a few women, and that's one of the coolest things I've heard, that you were actually able to try it on and then, literally type it back and say, yeah, you can.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh.
And I hope I never get so big that I can't have that relationship with that person at the other end of the product. I think it is so important.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I still, I have a staff now, but sometimes I still like to go on to Instagram or go on, or answer questions like that. After the Kickstarter, I actually did some video chats because I wanted some feedback as to our marketing. Did we describe nudie? Was it what you thought? Blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. Sizing, things like that. So it really was it catapulted the whole brand.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Well, again, you guys, just a friendly reminder, we're talking about 2019. We're recording this in 2021, and the growth and what you've built through Nudie. And really, it is a community. It's a community of women that loves it. You guys, if you haven't checked them out, be sure to do so. I'm going to give you a chance to connect with Annette later on. But it's been so fun to hear. I mean, a lot of this has been highlights, kind of different steps throughout your career. It's been so cool to hear how, again, all the puzzle pieces have kind of come to the fruition of Nudie and what you're doing now. But I'd love to know, are there any instances throughout your career that maybe you would say failure helped shape it?
Oh, yes. All the failure. It's really funny. I have been fired
Mm.
3 times in my career, not because wasn't an earner. I made a lot of money for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I was always fired for telling the truth. Nobody wanted to
Wow.
tell the truth,
Yeah.
or for standing up for the salespeople on the floor, who I
Wow.
always, still today, they're the most important people. And I really want to tell everybody that's out there listening,
Mm.
they are the point person with your customers. My
Yeah.
customer service person I have now is key,
Yeah.
right? Because I don't get to dialogue with those people. So, but I learned a lot from that. I learned that I get to create those truths. Like, I really love when my team, I I encourage them to tell the truth. We are a small team. We need to know what your truth is.
Mm.
I am there. I want to be a really good CEO. I am there and humbled by the fact that I can actually, have this company, and I am there basically to almost serve them. What do they need to make their jobs better, or to do their jobs better?
Wow.
And so it's, I call those failures. I don't know if they were failures when I got fired, but you felt like that definitely for at least 24
Right.
hours.
Right.
But then you can kind of like pick yourself up and keep going.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's such a
Yeah.
great example too. And yeah, in the moment, yeah, you could think, oh, this is a failure. But for you to look
Yep.
back and to be like, no, you know what? I learned so much. And I love what you just shared too. You were telling the truth. You were standing up for somebody else. What other better reason to get fired for? I mean,
Yep.
truly. And then for you to be able to take so many lessons from, and really from, I mean, gosh, managing a store to now, like you said, being the CEO. And I love
Hmm.
too, I almost feel like I'm just repeating what you're saying, but it's also good, Annette. I love what you just shared about, you're really humbled to be in the role that you're in and to be able to say, okay, how can I assist? How can I best help others? So for those of you who are listening, I know we have lots of recent graduates. I know we have lots of women pivoting in your career, but I also know I have some former guests and quite a few CEOs, quite a few business owners that tune in. And I don't know that I've heard that mentioned on the podcast. So just a round of applause and just a little pause and rewind moment for Annette. For those of us who do have people who we work with, why not take a step back and recognize, okay, I'm humbled to be in this position. How can I best serve others? I have chills. That's awesome, Annette. So good. Well, on top of all of that, I'd love to know what has been a real wow moment for you in your career.
Every day, literally every day. I mean, sometimes it's like, oh, you have a goal, and then you get to it. And you're like, oh my god, I got to the goal, and then it's like the next goal. Every day is a wow day. From being here on this podcast, which I can't
Oh,
believe, I'm on podcasts. People
oh,
want to hear my story. What? I mean,
yes.
it really is, and I find it amazing that it's just an undying kind of excitement about what we're doing here.
Oh,
And I just want to keep sharing,
yeah.
because what we're doing is more than just, another product. We're doing something much bigger than that here
Oh, yeah. I mean,
with Moody.
oh, I mean, I already knew I was a fan and a friend, and I knew I was excited to chat with you today, but yeah, I completely agree. I mean, and your passion behind all of it shines through. Well, now, okay, I've got to preface this, and I always love to preface this one with my guests because it's a big question. It's kind of loaded, so that's your warning. But I
Okay.
know that my listeners, they would not want me to skip this one because it's a great question. I'd love
Hmm.
to know, what is perhaps the greatest lesson that you have learned?
That dreaming is the first step to reality. Yeah, the dream. It's the dream. It's that dream. It's that vision. It's, dreams have lots of meaning.
Mm.
And I dreamed up Moody,
Mm.
and here we are today. So it really starts with the dream.
Mm.
Oh my God, I sound like Martin Luther King, but no.
No, but I mean,
But it is.
let's take it to that level though. I mean, truly it's so fun because oftentimes on the podcast there's pause and rewind moments where I just tell listeners, okay, pause and rewind. But then there's other moments that it's like, okay, what's the homework from this
Mm,
episode? And I think Annette just said it. I think it's like, you guys, for those of you who are listening, and perhaps this is your first introduction to Annette and Nudie and gosh, all of the different things that she's done. But this is one, pause, rewind, but take a moment to think, okay, what is that dream? Or maybe, oh, wow. Wow. Okay, Annette, here we go. What is the dream from years ago that maybe you gave up on, or maybe you forgot about until you've tuned into this podcast? And maybe you thought at the time it would be a great idea, but it's just been years since you thought of it or since you moved forward with it. Well, okay, the homework for you, resurrect the dream. Let's see what the dream is. I mean, what else, what better way to kind of have homework from this conversation than either let's look back at some old dreams that maybe need to come back, or perhaps there's a dream that you need to start dreaming so that it can become reality. Oh my gosh, Annette,
Absolutely. And, the second part to that is also that dream does not have a timetable.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to just trust in the universe, because if I launched Nudie 11 years ago, that was too soon.
Yeah.
It was all like divinely timed.
Yeah.
And the time was right when it launched. So, don't push, just stay with it. That's why this day to day, you can't look too much forward, because sometimes it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's just too much.
Oh my gosh. But it's so true. It's so true. All the timing for Nudie, and you guys, for those of you who are listening, the timing is going to pan out perfectly for you as well.
Yeah.
Well, gosh, I'm glad I asked that question, Annette.
Thank you.
Oh my
Thanks.
goodness. Well, I know that there's always something fun coming up for you, coming up for the team, and I'd love to know what's next for you.
So Nudie is a brand. So, we're going to keep educating our consumers about what we're doing here, which is, I didn't really talk about it, but really the ethos of what we're doing is we're calling BS on the bra industry, because bras were built to shape women. And so we're bucking up against that and saying, what, we do not need to be shaped. Like in my case for my wedding, I needed just a thin layer that allowed myself to show up like me at my wedding, between myself and my dress.
Yeah.
That's it. So that's what Nudie's doing, and that's kind of a higher order, and, is for women to kind of step into their power and be themselves and feel fine with it. Because there's been 100 years now that we have been told what we should look like, whether it's flat, pointy, twice as large. Our boobs are fine exactly the way they are. And Nudie just gives you that thin layer where you can embrace your shape, and then you can wear, tons of great fashion that's out there, which you should be having fun with fashion, and it should be easy.
Yes.
You shouldn't have to invest in 50 different pieces for 50 different outfits. So that's kind of, what we're doing. But so long term, we would like to be available in airports and spas and other retail spaces. This is a grab and go product. It's super easy in terms of fit. So you will never find us on a hanger anywhere, where you need to try it on. And we are expanding our styles. We just launched our second system, which is the halter system. And next year we have lots in store. I mean, this fall we have colors and prints and new limited edition styles. But there's going to be a lot of fun things. I mean, I can't tell you them yet. We're getting some IP on them first, but lots of good things in the mix for next year.
Well, so well said. And I'm excited for those of you who haven't checked out all that Annette is doing and Nudie. You guys, we're going to get there. We're getting there where you can connect with her. I'm sure many of you have already looked it all up. But Annette, is there anything today we didn't cover that you'd like to?
I would love to just give a shout out to XRC. We got into the accelerator program in cohort 9. XRC is an accelerator lab here in New York.
Awesome.
Consumer focused. And I just wanted to shout out to them because they have been so wonderfully focused on female founders of color. I check both of those boxes.
Yeah.
and really supportive. I mean, they're really digging down. And so I just wanted to give them a shout out. And they have amazing female founders with wonderful ideas and concepts and stores out there.
Oh, love it. I love it. Well, within that theme, and even within the theme of networking, which I guess we need to come up with a new term of networking, but just moving forward with relationships in life, I guess
Yeah.
is the best way to say it. I'd love to ask you, and this is a question I love to ask guests, who do you know that should maybe come on and share their how'd she do that story?
Well, I just going back to XRC, I love Lauren from All Bodies. All Bodies is actually, I think they came into XRC at cohort 10, and they're a digital health and wellness platform for body education.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, I thought Moody was edgy. We have nothing over All Bodies. I mean, they really tell it like it is. But like, I mean, I thought I knew a lot. I know nothing. I have
Wow.
gotten so much education from them. They're doing really important work.
Oh, awesome.
So I think she would be great.
Oh, fantastic. Well, you all will have to be on the lookout for a potential episode with them. Now, Annette, I've been teasing this, and many of you have already looked up Annette and Nudie and all that we've been chatting about, but where can listeners connect with you?
So either on nudisystem.com, so that's NUUDII system. So we're on Insta or by email, or you can actually, if you email curious@nudisystem.com, you can always shout out and say, hey, I heard Annette. I mean, I'm not that far from the curious email, and I'd be happy to connect.
Ah, fantastic. Well, Annette, this has been such a pleasure. I'm so grateful that you would take the time to chat with me today and to come on today's episode of How'd She Do That? So thank you. Thank you all for listening to today's episode of How'd She Do That? I am Emily Landers. You can find me on Instagram at Emily Landers and the podcast at How'd She Do That Podcast. I hope you'll join us next Tuesday for a new episode. We will talk to you soon.